May 12, 1943, 1430. Headquarters of the Afrika Korps, Cape Bon, Tunisia. Colonel General Hans-Jürgen von Arnim signs the Act of Capitulation of German and Italian forces in North Africa. 250,000 soldiers become prisoners of war. Among them, the elite units of the Deutsche Afrika Korps, veterans of the sandstorms from El Alamein to the Kasserine Pass. At the same time, 6,000 kilometers away in the underground bunker of the Reich Chancellery in Berlin, Adolf Hitler studies a world map dotted with red flags of defeats. Stalingrad had fallen 4 months earlier. The Battle of Kursk was about to turn into disaster. Italy trembled under Allied bombers, and now Africa was lost completely. Where will they find room for so many prisoners? Hitler asked Heinrich Himmler, Reichsführer SS. Himmler, rereading the Sicherheitsdienst report on American capabilities, answered with unusual uncertainty. My Führer, according to our data, they have sufficient camp capacity, but that's not the main issue. The main question is where will they take them? Indeed, transporting 250,000 prisoners across the Atlantic posed a massive logistical challenge, even for the Americans, but it was a challenge the United States was ready to meet. More than that, they planned to turn it into a strategic opportunity. Inside the halls of the Pentagon, the giant military building completed just a year earlier, American planners viewed the problem from a different angle. Brigadier General Brian Clark, responsible for POW affairs, wrote in a May 15th report, "Every German soldier who sees American production will become a living witness to our superiority. This is a psychological operation on the scale of 250,000 agents of crossed influence." American intelligence had detailed knowledge of Nazi propaganda about the U.S. Analysts of the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, systematically studied Nazi publications, radio broadcasts, posters. The picture was clear. The average German was being shown an America of racially inferior, economically weak, morally decayed people. Der Stürmer, Julius Streicher's anti-Semitic newspaper, regularly printed caricatures of American plutocrats Jews, supposedly ruling a nation of blacks and other subhumans. Völkischer Beobachter, the main Nazi mouthpiece, described American industry as a parasitic system built on exploiting racially inferior peoples. But the most harmful factor for Germans turned out to be their own isolation. Since 1933, the Nazis had systematically limited German contact with the outside world. Tourism to the U.S. practically ceased. Trade was reduced to a minimum. German youth grew up knowing of America only what propaganda told them. This isolation became a deadly trap. While Germans believed in their superiority, the Americans prepared an industrial revolution that would forever change the balance of power in the world. And now 250,000 German soldiers were about to see this new world with their own eyes. June 1943. The Statistical Department of the U.S. War Production Board published a secret report, Industrial Production, Results of 30 Months of War. The figures seemed like fantasy even to those who compiled them. In 30 months of war, American industry produced 86,000 tanks. Germany, in the same period, 31,000. 193,000 artillery pieces. Germany, 73,000. 2,400,000 trucks and jeeps. Germany, 346,000. 87,000 combat aircraft. Germany, 89,000, but with worse performance. 8,800 warships of all classes. Germany, 1,156. But behind these numbers lay an even more astonishing reality. American production was not running at full capacity. Most factories worked only 1 or 2 shifts, though they could run 24 hours. Female labor was being used for the first time in history, but far from fully. The resources of the West and South were barely tapped. Albert Speer, the Reich's armaments minister, after receiving these figures from agents in Switzerland, drew a shocking conclusion. The Americans can triple their production without straining their economy. We have reached our maximum. They are only warming up. The secret of American success lay not only in resources, but in revolutionary production methods. Henry Ford, founder of the automobile company, had in the 1920s developed the system of mass production now adapted for military needs. Assembly lines, standardization of parts, interchangeability of components. All these innovations allowed complex equipment to be produced at incredible speed. The Willow Run plant in Michigan became the symbol of this industrial miracle. On an area of 1.3 square kilometers stood the largest conveyor line in the world, 2 kilometers long. Every 63 minutes, a fully assembled 4-engine B-24 Liberator bomber rolled off the line. Charles Lindbergh, the legendary aviator, after visiting the plant in April 1943, wrote in his diary, "This is not a factory. This is an industrial poem. I witnessed the birth of a winged armada that buries the dreams of any conqueror." Yet even these achievements paled before the revolution in shipbuilding. Henry Kaiser's shipyards on the West Coast introduced modular construction technology. Instead of building hulls from keel to deck, ships were assembled from pre-made sections, like a child's toy. The results exceeded the boldest expectations. The Robert E. Peary, the first Liberty ship, took 244 days to build. By summer 1943, this time had dropped to 42 days. And the record-breaking Robert E. Burns was completed in 4 days, 15 hours, 27 minutes. "We are not just building ships," Kaiser told journalists. "We are stamping them like coins, and we have enough metal for a whole fleet of coins." June 15, 1943, Pentagon, Office of Colonel James Mason. On the wall hangs a map of the United States, marked with hundreds of colored pins, the future POW camps. Each pin is carefully chosen according to both geographic and psychological principles. "Gentlemen," Mason addresses the intelligence officers and psychologists, "before us lies a unique opportunity. 250,000 Germans will see America from the inside. What exactly they will see depends on us." Major Robert Thompson, a Harvard psychologist mobilized for the program, explains the strategy. Nazi propaganda rests on 3 myths: the racial inferiority of Americans, the economic weakness of the United States, and the moral decay of Western civilization. We will disprove each of these myths, not with words, but with facts. The plan for housing prisoners was brilliantly simple. Instead of concentrating them in large isolated camps, Germans would be distributed in small groups all across the U.S., Texas, California, Michigan, Georgia. Each state would showcase a unique side of American power. Special attention was given to transportation routes. Trains carrying POWs were deliberately routed through industrial centers. Detroit with its automobile giants, Pittsburgh with its steel mills, Houston with its oil refineries. Every mile of the journey is a lesson in American strength, Mason noted in a secret directive. But the cleverest element of the plan was employment. Instead of isolating POWs in camp workshops, Germans would work alongside American laborers in real factories. They would see not only the results of American production, but the process that created those results. "The best propagandist of the American system is the American worker," explained Captain Daniel Brown of the Psychological Service. When a German POW sees a black steelworker operating complex machinery and a white farmer eating meat 3 times a day, Rosenberg's racial theories collapse on their own. Transport number 47, Liberty Ship SS, James Russell Lowell, Mediterranean Sea, May 28, 1943, in cargo hold number 3, converted for POW transport. 847 German soldiers begin the most important journey of their lives. Among them 3 men whose fates would become symbols of a great transformation. Feldwebel Fritz Stern, 24 years old, tanker of the 15th Panzer Division. Born in Rosenheim, Bavaria, to baker Georg Stern and seamstress Marta, the only son in a family steeped in Catholic traditions and moderate Bavarian nationalism. In 1939, at age 20, he volunteered for the Wehrmacht, not driven by Nazi ideology, but by Bavarian patriotism and a desire to defend the homeland. "I was never a fanatic Nazi," he later wrote in his memoirs. "The party was far away in Berlin, but Bavaria, our mountains, our traditions, that was close. I went to war for my home, not for Hitler." Stern fought in France, where his tank unit broke through the Maginot Line. Then on the Eastern Front near Smolensk and Moscow, in the winter of 1941-42, he froze fingers on his left hand, received leave, and was transferred to the Africa Corps. "Africa felt like a resort after the Russian winter," he recalled. In Africa, Stern first began doubting German superiority. British Sherman tanks proved better armed than the German Panzer III. American aviation dominated the skies. "We won by skill, they won by numbers," he realized after the Battle of Kasserine. Oberleutnant Hans Wagner, 26 years old, Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighter pilot, son of an industrialist from Düsseldorf, owner of a mid-sized machine tool factory, educated at the Rhine Technical University, mechanical engineer, joined the Luftwaffe in 1940, motivated by the romance of flight and technological fascination with aviation. Wagner embodied the German technical elite, educated, rational, proud of German engineering. His father, Wilhelm Wagner, cooperated with the Krupp Company, producing specialized machinery for the arms industry. The family lived well, with a Mercedes automobile and a villa on the Rhine. "I absolutely believed in German technical superiority," Wagner admitted in post-war interviews. "Our Messerschmitts were the best in the world. Our tanks, the most powerful. Our factories, the most advanced. America, in my mind, was a land of farmers and traders, people who did not understand complex technology." Wagner shot down 17 enemy aircraft over North Africa, earning the Knight's Cross. On May 3, 1943, he was himself shot down by an American P-51 Mustang near Tunis. "That American aircraft was better than my Messerschmitt. It was his first great revelation." Captain Kurt Reimers, 31 years old, artillery engineer, commander of an 88mm battery, the most educated of the three, graduate of the Technical University of Berlin. Before the war, he worked at Opel's Rüsselsheim factory as a process engineer, married, with 2 children. Reimers represented the German intelligentsia that supported Nazism not from fanaticism, but from pragmatism. "The party promised order and development," he explained. After the chaos of the Weimar Republic, that sounded attractive. Unlike the other two, Reimers had worked with American technology. Before the war, Opel, owned by General Motors, produced licensed parts for American cars. American machinery was simpler than German, but more reliable, he noted. They sacrificed complexity for mass production. That very trait would become key to understanding America's superiority. Germans built technical masterpieces, Tiger tanks, Focke-Wulf 190 aircraft, Type 21 U-boats. But they produced them in small numbers, almost by hand, like jewelry. Americans built simpler, reliable machines and stamped them out by the thousands. In the ship's hold, the 3 men had no idea that their journey to America was a journey into the future. A future where industrial power would outweigh racial purity, and standardization would defeat individual craftsmanship. September 15, 1943, 0647, Newport News Naval Base, Virginia. An autumn morning, 18 degrees Celsius, a light fog over Chesapeake Bay. SS James Russell Lowell moors at Pier No. 7 after an 18-day Atlantic crossing. On board, 2,347 German POWs prepare for their first meeting with America. Feldwebel Stern, standing in the long queue to the gangway, tries to peer through a porthole. Ich kann nichts sehen. I can't see anything, he whispers to a fellow sufferer. The U.S. Coast Guard allows prisoners to come up on deck in small groups of 50. When Stern's turn comes, he climbs the metal stairs and sees American soil for the first time. Mein Gott, slips out of him involuntarily. What opened before the eyes of 2,347 Germans had nothing in common with their expectations of rundown American ports. Newport News Harbor stretched 8 kilometers along the shore. Dozens, no, hundreds of ships lay at the piers or at anchor in the roadstead. Liberty ships, brand new gleaming transports with paint not yet scuffed. Escort destroyers, cruisers, carriers. Es gibt so viele Schiffe. There are so many ships, murmurs Oberleutnant Wagner, trying to count them. I counted 47 transports in a single row, Stern wrote in his secret diary that evening. And that's only what I could see from the deck. Admiral Dönitz told us the Americans were building 5 ships a month. Here, there are hundreds. Captain Reimers, the engineer, focuses on technical details. Gigantic cranes, unloading ships, rail lines running right up to the piers, trucks shuttling between warehouses. Das ist keine Improvisation. This isn't improvisation, he thinks. This is a system that works like clockwork. But the greatest shock wasn't the number of ships. It was their quality. In German ports in 1943, the atmosphere was repair and rationing. Patched hulls, old paint stocks, economy in everything. Here, everything was new, gleaming, technologically refined. Where do they get so much metal? The question gnawing at every German. Since 1942, the Reich had enforced total metal mobilization, collecting even kitchenware and children's toys. Here, metal seemed unlimited. As the Germans began to disembark, they were met by American military guards, and there came the second shock. The men in uniform were tall, well-fed, equipped with gear that looked more expensive than German officers' kit. Ihre Gewehre sind new. Their rifles are new, Wagner notes. In the Wehrmacht, even officers often carried weapons made back in the First World War. Most striking were the Americans' faces. They didn't look like men fighting a third year of war, no exhaustion, no despair, none of the hardness that appears in eyes after thousands of hours of combat. Sie sehen aus wie Touristen. They look like tourists. Stern marvels. Indeed, most guards were new recruits who had never seen real combat. The U.S. had the luxury of keeping experienced veterans at the front while assigning rear duties to fresh levies, a privilege Germans could only dream of. September 16, 1943, 1420. A specially assembled 22-car train departs Newport News toward North Carolina. In the cars, passenger coaches refitted for POW transport, 2,200 Germans are seated. The route is deliberately laid through the most industrialized parts of Virginia and the Carolinas. Feldwebel Stern takes a window seat in car number 7. Beside him sits Second Lieutenant Peter Müller of the 21st Panzer Division, a 19-year-old from Dresden, captured on the first day of fighting in Tunisia. Haben Sie schon Amerika gesehen? Have you seen America before? Müller asks. Nein, zum ersten Mal. No, for the first time, Stern replies. The train pulls out, and a landscape begins to race past that will change the Germans' view of the world. The first 30 kilometers, suburbs of Norfolk and Newport News, neat towns with tidy houses, each with its own plot of land. Jedes Haus hat einen Garten. Every house has a garden, Müller notes. To Germans used to the density of European cities, American sprawl seems a waste of space. But that waste speaks of wealth and the freedom to live without counting every square meter. In car number 12, Captain Reimers concentrates on infrastructure. The highway running parallel to the tracks is covered with asphalt, a luxury not available even to German autobahns in 1943. Dozens of automobiles travel it, most privately owned. In Deutschland haben nur Offiziere Autos. In Germany, only officers have cars, he thinks. At 1540, the train passes the DuPont chemical plant in Richmond. Reimers counts pipes, buildings, loading platforms. Dieser eine Betrieb ist größer als drei unserer Fabriken zusammen. This one plant is bigger than 3 of ours combined. He writes in a notebook, the American guards let him keep. But the biggest impression comes at stops. When the train pauses in Richmond to refuel, prisoners see American workers heading home after the day shift, clothes clean, faces not gaunt, grocery bags in hand. Sie sehen besser als all unser Offizier. They look better than our officers, Stern whispers to Müller. In car number 15, Oberleutnant Wagner talks with a group of Luftwaffe pilots, veterans of England, Russia, Africa, trying to reconcile what they see outside with what they were told about America. Seht ihr die Stromleitungen? Do you see the power lines? Wagner asks. Rural electrification is striking. In Germany, not even all cities had stable power. Here, wires run even to isolated farms. At 1715, the train passes a large farm near Durham. The Germans see tractors not 1 or 2, but dozens. Ich zähle 20 Traktoren auf einem Hof. I count 20 tractors on one farmstead. One pilot marvels. In Germany, agricultural mechanization is only beginning. Here it is, widespread. The greatest revelation, however, is the people. At stops, the Germans see not only white Americans, but African Americans working as skilled laborers, operating machinery, wearing clean clothes, flatly contradicting racial propaganda. Ein Schwarzer bedient einen Kran. A black man is operating a crane. Muller whispers to Stern at the Goldsboro stop. Indeed, an African-American worker deftly maneuvers a 15-ton crane, unloading rail cars. In the Nazi racial hierarchy, this could not be inferior races, could not handle complex machinery. Das Widerspricht allem was man uns erzählt hat. This contradicts everything we were told, Wagner admits quietly. Propaganda painted African Americans as primitive, incapable of skilled work. Reality showed the opposite. September 17, 1943, 0930, Camp Butner, North Carolina. The train stops at a specially built platform 2 kilometers from the main camp. Germans disembark under the watch of U.S. military police, armed with M3 grease guns, a weapon most Germans are seeing for the first time. Camp Butner is one of the largest POW facilities in the program. 15,000 Germans and Italians are housed in 200 barracks, spread over 25 square kilometers. But what the new arrivals see, once again, contradicts their expectations of American concentration camps. Feldwebel Stern marches in line next to Oberleutnant Wagner. They silently take in the camp's layout. Wooden barracks, not crude huts, but standardized structures with windows, electric lighting, and running water. Das sieht besser aus als unsere Kaserne in Bamberg. This looks better than our barracks in Bamberg, Wagner admits. Indeed, American standards for POW housing far exceeded German army norms. Each barrack housed 50 men, instead of the usual German 80. Every barrack had a laundry with hot water, a common room with a radio, even a library, luxuries unavailable even in German officer academies. Captain Reimers notices the technical details: electric light bulbs burning in the daytime, wastefulness unthinkable in the Reich since 1941. Hot and cold water taps in every barrack. Central heating with individual temperature controls. Sie verschwenden Energie, als ob sie unbegrenzt wäre. They waste energy as if it were unlimited, Reimers thinks. In Germany, every kilowatt hour was rationed. Here, electricity seemed to cost nothing. First assignment, barrack number 47. Stern receives a bed with a spring mattress, not straw, but real springs. Sheets white, clean, smelling of American soap. Next to the bed, a metal locker and chair. Das ist Luxus. This is luxury, sighs young Lieutenant Muller. At 12 o'clock comes the first camp meal. A dining hall for 2,000, equipped to U.S. Army standards. Metal trays, forks and knives, not the wooden utensils German units had issued since 1943. And the menus stunned the Germans completely. Tomato soup, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green peas, white bread with butter, apple pie, coffee with milk and sugar. Wir haben seit 1940 kein Fleisch jeden Tag gegessen. We haven't eaten meat every day since 1941, Stern whispers to a comrade. Indeed, the POW diet exceeded German army rations at the front, 3,200 calories a day compared to 2,800. Meat daily versus twice a week in the Wehrmacht. Fresh vegetables and fruit versus canned goods and ersatz products in the Reich. Wagner sits next to Italian prisoners who have been in the camp since May. Come mangiate sempre così? Do you always eat like this? He asks in Italian. Sì, ogni giorno. Yes, every day, replies Captain Pietro Rossellini of the Bersaglieri. È incredibile, vero? Unbelievable, isn't it? After lunch comes a medical check. American Army doctors examine every POW. Reimers undergoes his with Major Robert Clark, Harvard Medical School graduate. The equipment astonishes him. X-ray machine, electrocardiograph, full surgical instruments. In our field hospital, we had nothing like this, he thinks. Dr. Clark asks in broken German, Haben Sie Probleme mit Zähnen? Do you have problems with your teeth? When Reimers nods, the doctor writes in his file, dental care required. That evening, lying on a real mattress under a clean blanket, listening to American music on the radio in the common room, Stern tries to process the day. Sie behandeln uns besser als unser eigenen Offizier ihre Soldaten. They treat us better than our own officers treat their soldiers, he records in his secret diary. It was a truth hard to admit. American standards for housing enemy POWs exceeded German standards for their own troops. A system that could afford such treatment of its enemies possessed resources beyond all German calculations. October 25, 1943, Camp Hearn, Texas. Captain Reimers and 200 other POWs with engineering backgrounds are assigned to work at the Texaco oil refinery in Port Arthur. This is part of an American intelligence program to show German specialists the true scale of U.S. industry. 0530, wake up. 0600 breakfast, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, coffee. 0645, boarding special buses to transport them to the refinery. The very fact that prisoners are driven by bus rather than marched on foot already reflects the American approach to efficiency. The ride takes 45 minutes. Reimers sits by the window, observing the Texan economy. Oil derricks as far as the eye can see. Each one serviced by a crew with its own vehicles. So viele Lastwagen, so many trucks, he mutters. In Germany, oil was the #1 strategic resource. Every liter strictly accounted for. The Romanian fields at Ploiești constantly threatened by Soviet advances. Synthetic fuel from coal cost 3 times as much as natural. But here, in Texas, oil gushed from the ground in fountains. 0730. The bus arrives at the Texaco refinery. Reimers steps out and looks around. What he sees shatters all his notions of industrial scale. The refinery covers 15 square kilometers larger than the entire industrial district of Rüsselsheim, where he had worked before the war. Hundreds of metal towers, tanks, pipelines, rail tracks running straight into the facility. Its own port with piers for oil tankers. Das ist nicht eine Fabrik, das ist eine Stadt. This is not a factory, this is a city, Reimers thinks. Indeed, 22,000 people work here, more than the population of his hometown in Hesse. He and the other engineers are welcomed by John McNamara, head of the catalytic cracking unit, an Irishman from Boston who has worked at Texaco since 1923. "Welcome to America, boys," he greets them with a smile. His English is simple enough for even Germans with basic language skills to understand. McNamara leads a tour of the plant. The catalytic cracking process, an American invention from 1936, produces 1.5 times more high-octane gasoline from crude oil. Germany has no such units at all. "We produce 50,000 barrels per day," McNamara explains. Reimers quickly calculates 8 million liters of gasoline daily from a single plant, more than all of Germany's synthetic fuel industry combined. "How many such plants do you have?" Reimers asks. McNamara smiles. "Oh, this is a small one. You should see our Baytown refinery. Or the one in California." "Small one?" Reimers realizes this small refinery is larger than Germany's entire refining industry. And America has dozens of such facilities. But even more striking than scale is organization. This unit runs with 180 men per shift. In Germany, a similar unit would require 400 to 500. Automation, mechanization, rationalization, all pushed to the limit. "Sie arbeiten nur 8 Stunden? You work only 8 hours?" Reimers asks in disbelief. In Germany since 1943, shifts had been 12 to 14 hours. "Yes, 8 hours, then we go home to our families," McNamara replies. At the end of the shift, the Germans watch American workers leave for the parking lot. Their own cars, Chevrolets, Fords, Plymouths. In Germany, only 1 in 1,000 citizens owned a car. Here, 1 in 3 workers drives home in one. "Der Arbeiter fährt Auto nach Haus." The worker drives home in a car, Reimers writes in his diary. In Germany, even engineers walk or ride bicycles. Here, an ordinary worker lives better than a German engineer. December 15, 1943. A special train of 500 POW specialists arrives at Detroit's Central Station. Among the passengers, Captain Reimers, Feldwebel Stern, Oberleutnant Wagner. American intelligence has carefully chosen them for an educational program in the industrial heart of America. Detroit, in December 1943, is a city working for victory 24 hours a day. Population, 1.6 million in 1940, now 2.1 million, swollen by internal migration of workers from across the country. Every 4th American tank, every 3rd aircraft engine, every 2nd artillery shell is made here. Camp Wayne lies 20 kilometers outside Detroit, but the route to work is deliberately routed through the city's industrial districts. The Germans are to see the full scale of the arsenal of democracy. 0600, December 16th. Reimers, Stern, Wagner, and 47 other POWs board a bus to Ford's River Rouge plant. The driver, an African American named Sam Johnson from Alabama, greets them politely. "Morning, gentlemen." Courtesy toward enemy soldiers seems strange to the Germans. The bus rolls down Michigan Avenue through central Detroit. Outside, dozens of smoking factories. General Motors, Chrysler, Packard, Briggs Manufacturing, names the Germans knew only from pre-war auto magazines. Now these plants produce P-51 fighters, M4 tanks, R-2800 engines. "Es sind so viele Fabriken." So many factories, Stern whispers to Wagner. Indeed, the concentration of industrial plants in Detroit has no equal. In 1 square kilometer lie more production facilities than in entire German regions. 0715. Arrival at the River Rouge plant. Here, the Germans confront an industrial complex that rewrites their idea of the possible. The largest industrial enterprise in the world, 50 square kilometers. Its own port, railway, power station, steel mills, foundries, assembly halls. "Das ist unmöglich, "This is impossible," Reimers blurts. As an engineer, he knows what such scales mean. This single plant is larger than the entire Ruhr industrial basin. They are greeted by Joseph O'Brien, Assistant Production Director, University of Michigan graduate, fluent in German. "Guten Morgen, meine Herren." "Good morning, gentlemen," he says. "Heute zeige ich Ihnen, wie Amerika Panzer baut." Today I will show you how America builds tanks. The tour begins in the Open Hearth Steelworks. The Germans watch steel smelted not with German-style rationing of inputs, but with American extravagance. "We use the best coal and the best ore," O'Brien explains. "Quality matters more than cost." In Germany since 1942, all possible substitutes were added to steel to save scarce materials. Quality declined, but conservation was the priority. Here, quality itself was the priority. Next, the foundry where Sherman tank hulls are cast. Reimers counts the lines. 47 molding machines working simultaneously. At Krupp we had 12 hull lines, he thinks. "How many tanks do you produce per day?" Wagner asks. "Here at Rouge, 60 a day," O'Brien answers calmly, as if it were routine. 60 tanks per day. Reimers calculates quickly. 1,800 tanks a month from one plant. All of Germany produced 1,200 per month. One U.S. plant surpasses the entire Reich. "And how many such plants do you have?" Reimers asks, his voice trembling. O'Brien smiles. "Ford has 5 more, General Motors 8, Chrysler 4, plus dozens of smaller firms." The math is terrifying. If one plant makes 1,800 tanks monthly, and there are dozens, Germany has already lost this war on the assembly lines, not the battlefields. But the greatest shock awaits in final assembly. A conveyor 2 kilometers long. Every 85 seconds, a finished Sherman tank rolls off, fully armed, fueled, stocked with ammunition. "Ein Panzer jede Minute." One tank every minute, Stern whispers, watching. In Germany, even the best factories took 3 to 4 days to complete a tank. Wagner notices the workers, men and women together, whites and blacks in the same crews. "Eine Negern schweißt Panzerplatten." A black woman is welding armor plates, he whispers. In Nazi ideology, this was impossible. Inferior races and weak sexes could not do skilled labor. O'Brien notices their astonishment. "Wir nutzen alle unsere Talente." We use all our talents, he explains. "Geschlecht und Rasse sind nicht wichtig. Wichtig ist die Fähigkeit." Gender and race don't matter, ability does. It was a philosophy that gave America a colossal advantage. While Germany excluded women, Jews, Slavs, America mobilized everyone able to work. Its labor reserve was many times larger. At the end of the tour, O'Brien shows them the 1943 production chart. From this one plant, 8,600 Sherman tanks, 12,400 aircraft engines, 278,000 jeeps, 156,000 trucks. Und das ist nur ein Werk von Ford. And this is only one Ford plant, he adds. That evening in Camp Wayne Barracks, the 3 Germans sit, trying to process what they have seen. "Wir haben den Krieg schon verloren." We have already lost this war, Reimers says quietly. "Nicht auf dem Schlachtfeld, sondern hier, in diesen Fabriken," not on the battlefield, but here, in these factories. Stern opens his forbidden diary and writes, December 16, 1943. "Today I saw the future. It belongs to America." January 23, 1944. Camp Butner Repair Workshops, North Carolina. Feldwebel Stern is working alongside American mechanic Mike O'Connor, a 34-year-old Irishman from Boston. Between them, a rapport slowly develops, one that will become a turning point in Stern's understanding of American society. O'Connor, a fitter with 15 years of experience, was mobilized into the army in March 1942, but due to eyesight problems, was kept on rear duty. He supervises German prisoners in the camp shops, repairing military equipment. "Why you fight against us?" Stern asks in broken English while repairing an army truck. O'Connor, without stopping work, replies, "So my kids can live free. But we cannot reach America." Stern objects. O'Connor straightens up and looks him in the eye. "Freedom ain't an island, Fritz. If Hitler takes Europe, he'll come for us next. Better to stop evil where it starts." The answer shocks Stern. Back home, he'd been told Americans fought for the profit of Jewish bankers, for control of European markets. But this simple worker speaks of freedom with such sincerity that doubt vanishes. "Do you really have food in stores?" Stern asks. O'Connor laughs. "Come on, I'll show you." They get permission to go to nearby Durham to buy spare parts. Stern walks into an ordinary American A&P supermarket and can't believe his eyes. Shelves loaded with goods. Meat, fruit, vegetables, canned food. Everything Germany hadn't seen since the war began. "Das ist unmöglich." "This is impossible," Stern whispers. In Germany, ration cards had been in force since 1940. Meat 400 grams per week. Sugar 200 grams. Bread baked with wood pulp additives. Here, choices unknown, even in pre-war Germany. O'Connor notices the Germans' shock. "This is normal, Fritz. Every town has stores like this." He picks up a can of peaches and shows the label, "From California, shipped 3,000 miles, just so folks here can have fruit." 3,000 miles. Stern tries to imagine the logistics such supply requires. In Germany, transporting food 300 kilometers was considered a luxury. Here, fruit crossed a continent for ordinary consumption. "Wie können Sie sich das leisten?" "How can you afford this?" Stern asks. O'Connor explains, "We work 8 hours, get paid good money, can buy what we need." That evening, back at the camp, Stern shares his impressions with Wagner and Reimers. "Sie leben besser als unser Offizier." "They live better than our officers," he says. "Ein amerikanischer Arbeiter hat ein Auto, kauft Fleisch jeden Tag. Seine Kinder gehen zur Schule bis 18 Jahre." An American worker has a car, buys meat every day. His children go to school until 18. Reimers nods thoughtfully. "Das erklärt alles." That explains everything. "Sie kämpfen nicht aus Verzweiflung wie wir. Sie kämpfen, das zu verteidigen, was sie bereits haben." They don't fight out of desperation like we do. They fight to defend what they already have. March 1944. Aliceville Camp, Alabama. News from Europe arrives via American radio and newspapers, which POWs are allowed to read. Each report is another blow to German hopes of victory. March 6th. Allies bomb Berlin with 750 heavy bombers. March 15th. German troops occupy Hungary to prevent its withdrawal from the war. March 19th. Soviet forces reach the Romanian border. March 22nd. Japanese launch an offensive in Burma, but it cannot alter the war's course in the West. Feldwebel Stern reads the Montgomery Advertiser in the camp library. The headline, "Allied bombers hit Berlin in daylight raid." The photo shows a formation of hundreds of B-17 flying fortresses over the German capital. "Tageslicht Angriff auf Berlin," daylight attack on Berlin, he whispers. It means the Luftwaffe no longer controls the skies over the Reich. Americans can bomb German cities in daylight, without fear of resistance. Oberleutnant Wagner, the former fighter pilot, understands this better than anyone. "Wenn sie Berlin am Tag angreifen können, haben wir keine Luftwaffe mehr." If they can strike Berlin in daylight, we no longer have an air force, he tells his comrades. In the camp cinema, they screen the American newsreel Victory at Sea. The images stun. Dozens of aircraft carriers in a single fleet, hundreds of landing ships off the Italian coast, thousands of aircraft on carrier decks. Captain Reimers counts ships on screen. Ich zähle 40 Flugzeugträger in einer Aufnahme. I count 40 carriers in a single shot. The Kriegsmarine had 4 carriers under construction, none completed. The Americans had 40 in one fleet. After the film, German prisoners sit in silence. The numbers speak for themselves. America had already won this war before it began. U.S. industrial power exceeded Germany's by a factor of 10 to 15. Warum haben Sie uns das nicht früher gesagt? Why didn't they tell us this earlier? Asks young Lieutenant Müller. The answer is clear to all. German leadership either didn't know the truth or deliberately hid it. April 1st. News of the Allied landing at Anzio and expansion of the Italian beachhead. April 15th. Reports of preparations for a second front in France. April 30th. Soviet troops liberate Odessa. Each headline a new nail in the coffin of German hopes. Stern keeps a secret calendar of events. 30 April, Odessa gefallen. Rot Armee nähert sich Rumänien. Amerikaner bereiten Invasion vor. Deutschland kämpft gegen die ganze Welt. April 30th, Odessa has fallen. Red Army nears Romania. Americans prepare invasion. Germany fights against the whole world. But the greatest psychological blow is not the news itself, but a conversation with an American officer, Major David Rosenberg, a Jewish psychologist from New York who speaks fluent German. May 15th, 1944, Aliceville Commandant's Office. Captain Reimers is summoned for an interview with Major Rosenberg, part of the POW denazification program. It is a conversation that will forever change the German officer's worldview. Rosenberg, 38 years old, psychologist from Columbia University, son of Jewish immigrants from Austria-Hungary. His family fled Galicia in 1905 to escape pogroms. Now he interrogates German prisoners, trying to understand the psychology of Nazism. Setzen Sie sich, Herr Hauptmann. Sit down, Captain, Rosenberg says in flawless German. Ich möchte mit Ihnen über Deutschland sprechen. I'd like to talk with you about Germany. Reimers sits across from him. Before him stands a Jew in American uniform, a man who, according to Nazi ideology, should have been his enemy. Yet Rosenberg speaks as an equal with respect and genuine curiosity. Warum glaubten Sie an den Sieg? Why did you believe in victory? Rosenberg asks. Reimers answers honestly. Wir kannten Amerika nicht. Man sagte uns, Sie seien schwach, dekadent gespalten. We didn't know America. We were told you were weak, decadent, divided. Rosenberg nods. Und was denken Sie jetzt? And what do you think now? Reimers is silent for a moment, then replies, Wir haben uns geirrt. Völlig geirrt. We were wrong. Completely wrong. Erzählen Sie mir von Ihrer Arbeit vor dem Krieg. Tell me about your work before the war, Rosenberg continues. Reimers describes Opel's factory, cooperation with General Motors, German precision, American scale. Sie haben amerikanische Methoden studiert. You studied American methods? Rosenberg asks. Ja, aber wir dachten, das sei alles. Wir sahen nur die Methoden, nicht das System dahinter. Yes, but we thought that was all. We saw only the methods, not the system behind them. Rosenberg explains. Amerika ist nicht nur Technologie. Es ist Philosophie. Wir glauben, dass jeder Mensch wertvoll ist, unabhängig von Rasse oder Religion. America is not just technology. It is philosophy. We believe every person is valuable, regardless of race or religion. The statement shocks Reimers. All of Nazi ideology was built on the opposite racial hierarchy: Aryan superiority, inferiority of others. Yet this Jew speaks of the equality of all people. Aber die Rassenunterschiede. But racial differences, Reimers begins. Rosenberg interrupts. Ich bin Jude. Meine Großeltern kamen aus Europa. Bin ich weniger amerikanisch als mein irischer Nachbar? I am Jewish. My grandparents came from Europe. Am I less American than my Irish neighbor? The question stuns Reimers. By Nazi logic, Rosenberg should be an enemy of the American state, a subversive. But in reality, he serves it, defending its values. Wie können verschiedene Rassen zusammenarbeiten? How can different races work together? Reimers asks. Rosenberg smiles. Sie haben es selbst gesehen. In den Fabriken, auf den Straßen. Weiße, Schwarze, Juden, Katholiken. Alle arbeiten zusammen. You've seen it yourself. In the factories, in the streets. Whites, blacks, Jews, Catholics all working together. Indeed, in 2 months in America, Reimers had witnessed collaboration impossible under Nazi theory. Black mechanics, Jewish engineers, Irish workers side by side in the same crews, eating in the same canteens. Das widerspricht allem, was wir gelernt haben. That contradicts everything we were taught, Reimers admits. Rosenberg nods. Genau das ist das Problem. Sie haben Lügen gelernt, keine Wahrheit. That is exactly the problem. You were taught lies, not truth. The conversation lasts 2 hours. Rosenberg shows Reimers American textbooks, photos of civilian life, production statistics. Each fact dismantles another piece of Nazi propaganda. At the end, Rosenberg asks the key question. Was werden Sie nach dem Krieg tun? What will you do after the war? Reimers reflects. Ich weiß es nicht. Deutschland wird anders sein. I don't know. Germany will be different. Es kann besser werden. It can be better, Rosenberg replies. Wenn Sie die richtigen Lektionen lernen. If you learn the right lessons. June 6, 1944, 0830, Aliceville Camp. American radio delivers breaking news. Allied forces have landed in Normandy. The second front is open. In the mess hall, 3,000 German POWs fall into silence. All understand the meaning. Germany now fights on 2 fronts against an industrial power 10 to 15 times greater than its own. Feldwebel Stern sits with Lieutenant Müller and Oberleutnant Wagner. They listen to the details. 5,000 ships, 150,000 men in the first wave, 11,000 aircraft in support, 5,000 Schiff, 5,000 ships. Wagner repeats. The entire Kriegsmarine, at its peak, had 1,200 vessels of all kinds. The Allies assembled for one operation, a fleet 5 times larger. Captain Reimers makes notes. 150,000 men, 3 divisions, but behind them, millions more. The American army in Europe will swell to 2 to 3 million, plus the British, Canadians, French. Es ist vorbei. It's over, Reimers says quietly. Deutschland kann nicht gegen die ganze Welt kämpfen. Germany cannot fight against the whole world. That evening, the Americans screen footage of the landings. The images overwhelm. Endless lines of landing craft, clouds of parachutes, tanks rolling ashore from the sea. Technology beyond German dreams. Most astonishing is the organization. Mulberry artificial harbors, built in England and floated across the channel. The Pluto pipeline, laid under the sea. Logistics sustaining an army of millions. Sie haben einen Hafen über das Meer transportiert. They transported a harbor across the sea. Stern marvels. The German army struggled with supply. After 100 kilometers, the Americans supplied an army across an ocean. After the film, prisoners returned to barracks in silence. All know the war is lost. The only question is time and cost. Stern writes in his secret diary. 6. Juni 1944, der längste Tag für Deutschland. Amerika und England haben gesiegt, was möglich ist, wenn ein ganzes Volk für ein Ziel kämpft. Wir kämpften für einen Mann. Sie kämpfen für eine Idee. June 6, 1944. The longest day for Germany. America and England have shown what is possible when an entire nation fights for one goal. We fought for one man. They fight for an idea. August 1944. Camp Corda, Oklahoma. The American re-education program for German POWs is in full swing. 50,000 of the most receptive prisoners have been enrolled in special democratic education courses. Captain Reimers is one of the program's most successful graduates. In 6 months, he has gone from a convinced Nazi to an active critic of the Hitler regime. Now he helps the Americans work with other prisoners. Demokratie ist nicht Schwäche. Democracy is not weakness. Reimers tells a group of German officers in a camp classroom. Es ist ein System, das die Kraft aller Menschen nutzt. It is a system that harnesses the strength of all people. Among the listeners are skeptical SS officers, Wehrmacht tankers, Luftwaffe pilots. Many still believe in Germany's final victory. But Reimers' arguments rest on facts they themselves have witnessed. Sie haben die amerikanischen Fabriken gesehen. You have seen the American factories, he continues. Ein demokratisches System hat das geschaffen, nicht ein Diktator, sondern Millionen freier Menschen. A democratic system created that, not a dictator, but millions of free people. Feldwebel Stern also takes part in the program, but as a student, not a lecturer. He reads American history books, studies English, and tries to grasp the principles of a democratic society. He is especially struck by the American school system. Jedes Kind geht zur Schule bis 18. Every child goes to school until 18, he notes in his diary. Nicht nur die Reichen. Alle Kinder haben die gleiche Chance. Not just the rich. All children have the same chance. In Germany, education after age 14 was available mainly to well-off families. The system produced a class-based society with limited social mobility. America offered equal opportunity for all. Oberleutnant Wagner focuses on the technical aspects of American superiority. He studies American aviation journals, analyzes Allied air tactics, and seeks the secrets of U.S. industrial efficiency. Standardisierung, Standardisation, the key word he writes in his notebook. Americans turned production into a science. Every part, every process, every worker's motion standardized and optimized. Wir bauten Kunstwerke, sie bauen Systeme. We built works of art, they build systems, he realizes. The German Tiger tank is a technical masterpiece. The American Sherman is a product of systems thinking. Simple, reliable, mass-producible. The Tiger is hard to build and maintain. The Sherman is straightforward, dependable, plentiful. May 1945. Germany has capitulated, but for 400,000 German POWs in the U.S., the war ended much earlier, at the moment they understood victory was impossible. Captain Kurt Reimers becomes one of the first German prisoners permitted to remain in America. In December 1945, he applies for U.S. citizenship. In his cover letter, he writes, Ich möchte aufbauen, nicht zerstören. I want to build, not destroy. U.S. immigration approves his request. In 1947, Reimers takes an engineering job at General Motors in Detroit, the very plant he toured as a prisoner. Irony of fate. A former enemy becomes part of the American industrial system. In 1950, Reimers marries an American of German descent, Greta Schmidt, daughter of Bavarian immigrants. They have 3 children who grow up fully American. The eldest son, James, becomes a NASA astronaut and takes part in the Apollo program. Amerika hat mir eine zweite Chance gegeben. America gave me a second chance, Reimers says in a 1975 interview. Ich war Feind, und sie machten mich zum Bürger. I was an enemy, and they made me a citizen. Feldwebel Fritz Stern returns to Germany in July 1946. He brings home not only luggage, but new ideas about democracy. a market economy, and human rights. His hometown of Rosenheim lies in ruins. The family bakery has been destroyed by bombing. Stern rebuilds the family business not as a simple craftsman, but as an American-style entrepreneur. He introduces conveyor line bread production, creates a chain of shops, and applies marketing methods. By 1955, his company is Bavaria's largest baking enterprise. More important than economic success is his civic work. Stern becomes a regional co-founder of the Christian Democratic Union, actively supports European integration, and advocates partnership with the US. Amerika lehrte mich, dass Stärke nicht aus Hass kommt, sondern aus Hoffnung. America taught me that strength comes not from hatred, but from hope, he writes in his 1960 memoirs. Ein Volk, das seinen Feinden vergibt, ist stärker als ein Volk, das sie vernichtet. A nation that forgives its enemies is stronger than one that annihilates them. Oberleutnant Hans Wagner chooses a third path: emigration to Canada. In 1948, he moves to Toronto and becomes an engineer at de Havilland, Canada. His Luftwaffe experience proves valuable in developing new aircraft. Wagner helps create the DHC-6 Twin Otter, one of Canada's most successful aviation projects. In 1965, he becomes head of the company's design bureau. Most important is his contribution to post-war reconciliation. Wagner organizes exchanges between Canadian and West German aeronautical designers, fostering technological cooperation. In 1970, he receives the Order of Canada for services to aviation. Der Krieg lehrte mich zu zerstören. War taught me to destroy, he says in a 1980 farewell speech. Amerika und Kanada lehrten mich zu schaffen. America and Canada taught me to create. May 1945. Germany has capitulated, but for 400,000 German POWs in the US, the war ended much earlier, at the moment they understood victory was impossible. Captain Kurt Reimers becomes one of the first German prisoners permitted to remain in America. In December 1945, he applies for US citizenship. In his cover letter, he writes, Ich möchte aufbauen, nicht zerstören. I want to build, not destroy. U.S. immigration approves his request. In 1947, Reimers takes an engineering job at General Motors in Detroit, the very plant he toured as a prisoner. Irony of fate. A former enemy becomes part of the American industrial system. In 1950, Reimers marries an American of German descent, Greta Schmidt, daughter of Bavarian immigrants. They have 3 children who grow up fully American. The eldest son, James, becomes a NASA astronaut and takes part in the Apollo program. Amerika hat mir eine zweite Chance gegeben. America gave me a second chance, Reimers says in a 1975 interview. Ich war Feind, und sie machten mich zum Bürger. I was an enemy, and they made me a citizen. Feldwebel Fritz Stern returns to Germany in July 1946. He brings home not only luggage, but new ideas about democracy, a market economy, and human rights. His hometown of Rosenheim lies in ruins. The family bakery has been destroyed by bombing. Stern rebuilds the family business not as a simple craftsman, but as an American-style entrepreneur. He introduces conveyor line bread production, creates a chain of shops, and applies marketing methods. By 1955, his company is Bavaria's largest baking enterprise. More important than economic success is his civic work. Stern becomes a regional co-founder of the Christian Democratic Union, actively supports European integration, and advocates partnership with the US. Amerika lehrte mich, dass Stärke nicht aus Hass kommt, sondern aus Hoffnung. America taught me that strength comes not from hatred, but from hope, he writes in his 1960 memoirs. Ein Volk, das seinen Feinden vergibt, ist stärker als ein Volk, das sie vernichtet. A nation that forgives its enemies is stronger than one that annihilates them. Oberleutnant Hans Wagner chooses a third path: emigration to Canada. In 1948, he moves to Toronto and becomes an engineer at de Havilland, Canada. His Luftwaffe experience proves valuable in developing new aircraft. Wagner helps create the DHC-6 Twin Otter, one of Canada's most successful aviation projects. In 1965, he becomes head of the company's design bureau. Most important is his contribution to post-war reconciliation. Wagner organizes exchanges between Canadian and West German aeronautical designers, fostering technological cooperation. In 1970, he receives the Order of Canada for services to aviation. Der Krieg lehrte mich zu zerstören. War taught me to destroy, he says in a 1980 farewell speech. Amerika und Kanada lehrten mich zu schaffen. America and Canada taught me to create.